In a world ruled by rats, betrayal is deadlier than any trap. And the first kill isn't always at the hands of a human. Once upon a time, in a world filled with rats, there lived a particularly cunning one named Kael. He was self-centered, narcissistic, and greedy. But on the outside, he played the part of a good, honest rat so well that no one suspected his true nature. Life in Ratkindom was a constant hustle. You either risked your life scavenging for food in the human realm or begged for scraps from the wealthy. Kael had grown tired and impatient with this reality. In the Rat Kingdom, or Ratkindom as they called it, the cycle was always the same. Every month, the king of all rats, King Nero, would order his trained guards to venture into the human world. Their mission? Gather as much food as possible. It was a perilous journey. Some rats never returned, falling victim to the dangers of the human world. Others came back injured, but many returned unharmed, their sacks filled with precious food. When the guards returned, the bounty was distributed throughout Ratkindom. But fairness wasn't part of the equation. A rat's portion depended entirely on their status. The high-class rats, the elite, received unlimited supplies. They feasted while others starved. The middle-class rats received fair portions, enough to get by. But the low-class rats, they received barely enough food to sustain a single rat for a month, let alone an entire family. Kael was one of these low-class rats. By day, he worked as a janitor, cleaning the grand homes of the wealthy. He was bone-tired, exhausted from his thankless labor. He scrubbed their floors and emptied their trash, watching them do nothing and yet have everything. The injustice of it all gnawed at him, fueling a deep resentment that simmered just beneath the surface. One evening, Kael dragged himself home from work to an empty house. No food in the cupboards, no hope on the horizon. He collapsed onto his worn-out couch and switched on the Rattle News channel. The broadcast was a grim echo of every other night. There were updates on the state of Ratkindom, reports of crimes across the land, and the usual soundbites of the poor complaining about their plight. And then, finally, an announcement from King Nero himself. A new month was approaching. The king, in his royal decree, ordered the guards of the land to prepare for another dangerous journey into the human world. As Kael listened to the king's booming voice, a spark ignited in his mind. An idea, both brilliant and dangerous, began to take shape. Why don't I just follow the guards? He thought. Why don't I go into the human world myself and get enough food for my family and me? Just one trip, and we'd have enough to last the entire month. No more begging, no more starving. The plan seemed simple enough, a direct solution to all his problems. He was determined to go through with it. But there was one very significant problem. He wasn't a trained guard. He had no experience, no knowledge of the human world's treacherous landscape. He'd be caught, or worse, killed before he even found a crumb. But then, he remembered, he had a friend who was a guard. Very early the next morning, before the sun had even risen over Ratkindom, Kael made his way to his friend's house. As he approached, he saw him in the yard. "Scorch!" Kael shouted, a wave of relief washing over him. Scorch was busy polishing his guard boots, preparing for the upcoming mission. At the sound of Kael's voice, he looked up, his face breaking into a wide grin. "Kael!" he exclaimed, dropping his boots without a second thought. He rushed over and pulled his friend into a tight embrace. "How are you, my friend? It's been too long." "I'm fine, Scorch. It's good to see you," Kael replied, trying to sound casual. After their warm greetings, Scorch invited him inside. Kael took a seat on a small, neatly made stool. He didn't want to waste any time. "I'm actually here," Kael began, his voice a little shaky, "because I need my help." "With what?" Scorch asked, his expression open and trusting. "Anything for you, Kael. You know that." So, Kael told him everything. He poured out all his frustration and despair, the endless suffering, the gnawing hunger of his family, the bitterness of watching the rich feast while he toiled. And then, he laid out his risky plan. Scorch listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. Scorch's own experience wasn't so different from Kael's. He knew the struggle all too well. Before he became a guard, he too had been a low-class rat, fighting for every scrap. He understood Kael's desperation completely. So, without a moment's hesitation, he agreed. Together, They began to plan. They went over every single detail, leaving nothing to chance. Scorch, with his extensive knowledge of the human world, mapped out the safest routes and identified the best targets. Kael, meanwhile, possessed an extraordinary sense of smell, a rare gift that would allow them to locate the freshest, most valuable food. Their skills complemented each other perfectly. Their plan felt foolproof. The D-Day finally arrived. The air was thick with a mixture of anticipation and fear. They said their goodbyes to their families, promising to return with a bounty that would change their lives. Scorch had managed to acquire a spare guard uniform for Kael, a perfect disguise to help him blend in. As they approached a heavily guarded checkpoint that led into the human world, their hearts pounded in their chests. With a bit of quick thinking and clever tampering, Scorch manipulated the security system, creating a momentary glitch that allowed Kael to slip through completely undetected. They had done it. They were in. Once they were clear of the main party of guards, they veered off in a different direction, disappearing into the shadows, unseen. Scorch led the way with confidence. He had a specific target in mind: the home of the Andrews family. He knew from previous missions that this family was incredibly wasteful. They threw away vast amounts of perfectly good food every single day. They were the perfect target. They crept up to the large house, waiting for the right moment. The family was out for the evening, leaving the house dark and quiet. They found a small opening in the basement and slipped inside. The kitchen was a treasure trove. They worked quickly, their movements swift and silent. With Kael's incredibly sharp sense of smell guiding them, they bypassed the old and stale, selecting only the best cheeses, breads, and leftovers. They stuffed their bags until they were nearly bursting at the seams. Once their packs were full, they prepared to make their exit. Their mission was a success. They had more than enough food to last for weeks. But just as they were about to leave, Kael's nose twitched. He smelled something else, something incredibly fresh and sweet. He followed the scent, his curiosity piqued. It led him to a pantry, and inside, he found a massive supply of fresh fruits, apples, bananas, grapes. A jackpot. At that moment, greed, dark and powerful, took over. Kael knew it was dangerous. He knew time was running out and that they needed to leave immediately. But the sight of all that food, all that wealth, was too much to resist. He wanted more. Outside, Scorch waited anxiously with the packed bags. Minutes ticked by. He started to grow worried. What was taking Kael so long? His instincts screamed that something was wrong. Unable to wait any longer, he left the bags hidden in the bushes and crept back inside to find his friend. And at that exact moment, the Andrews family returned home from their night out. The front door swung open, and the sound of laughter and chatter filled the house. Scorch heard them and his blood ran cold. Panic set in. He tried to dart back towards the exit, but it was too late. The youngest child, a little girl named Leah, spotted his shadow moving across the floor. She let out a piercing scream. Scorch ran. He scrambled desperately for cover, but in his panic, he made a fatal mistake. His foot came down with a sickening snap. He had run directly into a rat trap. The metal jaws clamped down on his leg, pinning him to the floor. From his hiding spot in the pantry, Kael heard the scream, the snap, and Scorch's cry of pain. He peeked out just enough to see what had happened. He saw his friend, his loyal friend, trapped and helpless on the kitchen floor. And he did nothing. The mother, alerted by her daughter's scream, rushed into the kitchen. She saw Scorch writhing in the trap. With a look of disgust, she carefully picked up the trap and carried it over to the kitchen sink. She dropped him in, turned on the stove, and began boiling a pot of water. Kael knew he had to get out. He started to sneak away, moving as quietly as a whisper. But Scorch saw him. Through the pain and terror, he spotted Kael's silhouette in the pantry doorway. "Kael! Help!" he cried out, his voice choked with desperation. Kael froze. He stopped and looked back at his friend, trapped in the cold, stainless steel basin. "Please," Scorch begged, tears streaming from his eyes. "I have a family, Kael. They're waiting for me at home. You can't just leave me like this. Please. We had a plan." A flicker of something. Was it guilt? Regret? Crossed Kael's face, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "I'm sorry," Kael said, his voice barely audible. The mother returned to the sink, the pot of boiling water in her hands. She picked Scorch up by his tail and placed him into an empty bowl on the counter, and then she poured the scalding water over him. From the safety of the darkness outside the kitchen window, Kael stood and watched it all happen. He watched his friend's life end in the most horrific way imaginable. And then he turned, grabbed the bags of food they had collected together, and disappeared into the night. To be continued.